The History of Taliesin. There lived in Arthur's time in Penelyn a man of noble lineage named Tegid, and his dwelling was in the midst of Lake Tegid, and his wife was Caradwyn. And there was born to him of his wife a son named Morvran ap Tegid, and also a daughter named Clearly, the fairest maiden in the world, and they had a brother, the most ill-favored man in the world, Vagdhu. Caradwyn thought his ugliness would exclude him from the company of men of noble birth, unless he had some special knowledge. So she boiled a cauldron of inspiration and science for her son, until she could distill 3 drops of the grace of inspiration. She put her servant boy, Gwion Bach, to stir the cauldron, and a blind man named Morda to kindle the fire beneath it. And she ordered them to boil for a year and a day. She gathered charm-bearing herbs every day. One day, toward the end of the year, while Caradwyn was making incantations, 3 drops of the charmed liquor flew out of the cauldron and fell upon the finger of Gwion Bach. He put his finger to his mouth, and that instant he foresaw everything that was to come, including that his chief care had to be to guard against the wiles of Caradwyn, for vast was her skill. He fled toward his own land, and the cauldron burst in 2, because all the liquor within it was poisonous, except the 3 charm-bearing drops. Caradwyn saw the toil of the whole year lost. She seized a billet of wood and struck the blind Morda on the head until one of his eyes fell out upon his cheek. He cried, "Woefully have you disfigured me, for I am innocent. Your loss was not because of me." "You speak true," said Caradwyn. "It was Gwion Bach who robbed me." She ran after him. When Gwion Bach saw her, he changed himself into a hare and fled. But Caradwyn changed herself into a greyhound and headed him off. He ran towards a river and became a fish. In the form of an otter she chased him under the water until he turned himself into a bird of the air. As a hawk she followed him and gave him no rest in the sky. Just as she was about to swoop upon him, he saw a heap of winnowed wheat on the floor of a barn, dropped among it, and turned himself into one of the grains. Then Caradwyn transformed herself into a black hen, scratched the wheat with her feet, and found him out and swallowed him. And, as the story says, she bore him 9 months. And when she was delivered of him, she could not find it in her heart to kill him, by reason of his beauty. She wrapped him in a leather bag and cast him into the sea. At that time the Weir of Gwythno was on the beach between Dyfi and Aberystwyth, near Gwythno's castle. Gwythno had an only son named Elefin, the most hapless of youths, and the neediest. Gwythno granted him the drawing of the Weir that year, to see if good luck would befall him, and to give him a start in the world. When Elefin went to look, there was nothing in the Weir. Then he perceived the leather bag upon a pole of the Weir. One of the Weir guardians said to him, "You were never unlucky until tonight, but now you have destroyed the virtues of the Weir. It always yielded 100 pounds worth of fish a year, and now there is nothing but this leather skin." "There may be 100 pounds in it," said Elephant. The weir ward opened the leather bag and saw the forehead of the boy inside. He said to Elephant, "There's a radiant brow." "Let him be called Taliesin," said Elephant, lifting the boy in his arms. Elephant made his horse amble gently and carried the boy as softly as he could. Then the boy praised him. "Fair Elephant, cease to lament, let no one be dissatisfied with his own. Despair brings no advantage, no man sees what supports him. Never in Gwythno's weir was there such good luck as tonight. Fair Elephant, dry your cheeks, being too sad will do no good, nor doubt the miracles of the Almighty. Although I am but little, I am gifted from seas and from mountains and from the depths of rivers. God brings wealth to the fortunate man. Elephant of lively qualities, your resolution is unmanly. You must not be over sorrowful. Better to trust in God than to forebode ill. Weak and small as I am on the foaming beach of the ocean, in the day of trouble I shall be of more service to you than 300 salmon. Elephant, do not be displeased at your misfortune. With me as your protector, you have little to fear. None shall be able to harm you." The son of Gwythno Garanir asked the boy what he was, whether he was man or spirit. Then Taliesin sang this tale. "First I have been formed a comely person in the court of Cared, when I have done penance, though I was seen but little, and received indifferently. I have been praised, defence the sweet muse, the cause, and by law without speech. I have been liberated by a smiling old hag when irritated. Dreadful her claim when pursued. I have fled with vigor. I have fled as a frog. I have fled in the semblance of a crow, scarcely finding rest. I have fled as a thrush of portending language. I have fled as a fox used to bounding. I have fled as a marten, which was of no avail. I have fled as a squirrel that vainly hides. I have fled as a stag's antler of ruddy course. I have fled as iron in a glowing fire. I have fled as a spearhead, which is woe to those who wish for it. I have fled as a fierce bull fighting bitterly. I have fled as a bristly boar seen in a ravine. I have fled as a white grain of pure wheat on the skirt of a hempen sheet entangled, that seemed the size of a mare's foal that is filling like a ship on the waters. In a dark leather bag I was thrown, and on a boundless sea I was set adrift, which to me was an omen of being tenderly nursed, and the Lord God then set me at liberty. Then Elephant came to the house of Gwythno his father, and Taliesin with him. Gwythno asked him if he had had a good haul at the weir, and he told him that he had got something better than fish. "What was that?" asked Gwythno. "A bard," said Elephant. "Then," said Gwythno, "what use will that be to you?" Talion himself replied, "More good than the weir ever profited you." Gwythno asked, "Are you able to speak when you are so small?" Taliesin answered, "I am better able to speak than you to question me." "Let me hear what you have to say," said Gwythno, and then Taliesin sang. In water there is a quality endowed with blessings. On God it is most just to mediate aright. To God it is proper to supplicate with seriousness, since there can be no obstacle to obtaining a reward from him. 3 times have I been born, I know by mediation. It would be wretched if people could not come and learn all the sciences of the world that are gathered in my heart. For I know what has been and what will come to pass. I will entreat my Lord to give me refuge, a regard I may obtain in his grace. The Son of Mary is my trust, great is my delight in him, for in him the world is continually upheld. God has been instruct me, and to raise my expectation, the true Creator of heaven, who affords me protection. It is rightly intended that the saints should pray every day, for God the Redeemer will bring them to him. Wow, this is religious. Eliphalet's wife nursed Taliesin tenderly and lovingly. From then on, Eliphalet increased in riches day by day, and increased in love and favor with the king. Taliesin lived with him until he was 13 years old, when Eliphalet accepted a Christmas invitation to stay with his uncle, Maelgwn Gwynedd. Maelgwn held open court at Christmas-tide in the castle of Deganwy for all his lords, and a discussion arose amongst the vast thronged host of knights and squires. Someone asked, "Is there in the whole world a king so great as Maelgwn, or one on whom heaven has bestowed so many spiritual gifts? First, form, beauty, meekness, and strength, and all the powers of the soul besides." Others said heaven had given one gift exceedingly all the others, the beauty, comeliness, grace, wisdom, and modesty of his queen. Her virtues surpassed those of all the ladies and noble maidens in the whole kingdom. And with this they put questions one to another among themselves. Who had braver men? Who had fairer or swifter horses or greyhounds? Who had more skilful or wiser bards than Maelgwn? At that time the bards were in great favor with the exalted of the kingdom. None performed the office of those who are now called heralds, unless they were learned men, not only expert in the service of kings and princes, but studious and well versed in the lineage, arms, and exploits of the princes and kings, and in discussions concerning foreign kingdoms, the ancient things of their own kingdom, and the annals of the first nobles. They were always prepared with their answers in various languages, Latin, French, Welsh, and English. They were great chroniclers and recorders, skilful in framing verses, and ready in making englins in every one of those languages. In the palace of Maelgwn there were at that feast as many as 24 bards, and chief of them all was Henenvarth. When they had all made an end of praising the king and his gifts, it fell to Eliphalet to speak. Truly, only a king may compete with a king, But if Maligdwyn were not a king, I would say that my wife was as virtuous as any lady in the kingdom. I would also say that I had a bard who was more skillful than all the king's bards. The king's friends quickly reported Eliphalet's boasts to him. Maligdwyn ordered him to be imprisoned until he learned the true virtues of his wife and the wisdom of his bard. Eliphalet was thrown into a tower of the castle with a heavy chain around his feet. Then Maligdwyn sent Rune, his son, to inquire into the demeanor of Eliphalet's wife. Rune, the most graceless man in the world, went in haste towards Eliphalet's house, minded to bring disgrace upon Eliphalet's wife. She was forewarned, however. Taliesin told her that Maligdwyn had placed Eliphalet, his master, in prison, and that Rune was coming to bring disgrace upon her. He persuaded his mistress to dress one of the kitchen maids in her apparel, which the noble lady gladly did, loading the best rings she and her husband possessed onto the maid's hands. Then Taliesin sat the disguised maid down to supper in her mistress's room. Rune arrived and was taken by the servants to the room of their mistress. The maid playing the mistress rose and welcomed him, then sat down again, and Rune with her. He began jesting with her and slipped a sleeping powder into her drink. Oh shit, they had roofies back in the day. That's fucked up. Anyway, she fell asleep and slept so soundly that she never felt it when Rune cut off her little finger, bearing the signet ring of Eliphalet. He returned to the king with the finger, and the ring is proof that he had cut it from her hand without waking her from her drunken sleep. Maligdwyn rejoiced at this news. What? Like, he cut off her finger? Is that worse than rape, or about the same? I don't know. Like, what the fuck do guys need to roofie girls for so much? Okay, anyway. Maligdwyn rejoiced at this news for some odd fucking reason. Then he had Eliphalet brought out of his prison, and rebuked him for his boast. Eliphalet, it is but folly for a man to trust in the virtues of his wife further than he can see her. You may be certain of your wife's vileness. See her finger, with your signet ring upon it, cut from her hand last night, while she was in a drunken stupor. Eliphalet said, Mighty king, I cannot deny that that is my ring, but that finger is not my wife's. There are 3 notable things about it. The first of the 3 is that this ring was hard to draw over the joint of this little finger. The second is that the nail of this little finger has not been pared for a month. The third is the hand from which this finger came was kneading dough 3 days before the finger was cut therefrom, and my wife has never kneaded dough since she has been my wife. Good for fucking her. Maligdwyn was angry with Eliphalet for standing up to him, and ordered him to prison a second time, saying that he should not be released until he had proved the truth of his boast concerning the wisdom of his bard and the virtues of his wife. In the meantime, Taliesin told Eliphalet's wife that he would go to Maligdwyn's court to free his master. She asked how he would set Eliphalet free, and Taliesin answered, A journey I will undertake, and to the gate I will come, the hall I will enter, and my song I will sing. My speech I will pronounce to silence royal bards, in the presence of their chief, and Eliphalet I will free. Should contention arise in the presence of the prince, with summons to the bards for the sweet flowering song, and wizards poising lore, and the wisdom of the druids in the court are some who did appear intent on cunning schemes. By craft and tricking means let the fools be silent, as once in bandits fight with Arthur, the leader of freemen, with long red blades through the feats of testy men, and a chief together with his foes. Woe to them, the fools, when revenge comes upon them. High Taliesin, chief of bards, with a wise druid's words, will set kind elephant free from a haughty tyrant's shackles to their fallen chilling cry. By the act of a surprising steed from the far distant north, there soon shall be an end. Let neither grace nor heath be to Malagdwin Gwyneth for this force and the strong, and let there be extremes of woes, and an avenged end to ruin in all his race. Let the course of his life be short, let all his lands be laid to waste, and let exile on fair Iona be assigned to Malagdwin Gwyneth. After this, Taliesin took leave of his mistress, and came at last to the court of Malagdwin, who was about to dine in royal state, and was the custom for kings at every feast. When Taliesin entered the hall, he sat in a quiet corner, close to the place where the bards and the minstrels sat. The bards and the heralds came to cry La Grâce, and proclaim the power of the king and his strength, and, as they passed by the corner where he crouched, Taliesin pouted at them, and made a blurm blurm noise with his finger upon his lips. The bards and heralds took little notice of him as they walked past and went before the king, to whom they bowed in the usual way. But then they said nothing but pouted, making faces at the king, and made a blurm blurm noise upon their lips with their fingers, just as they had seen the boy do. The king wondered if they were drunk. He commanded one of his lords to go and tell them to collect their wits, and to consider whether their behavior was appropriate. Nevertheless, the bards and the heralds carried on making this strange childish noise. Malagdwin sent them a second and third time, telling them to leave the hall. At last he ordered one of his squires to cuff the chief of the bards, Henenvarth. The squire took a broom and hit Henenvarth on the head, so that he fell back in his seat. Then Henin went down on his knees, and pleaded with the king that it was not the bard's fault, nor was it through drunkenness, but by the influence of some spirit that was in the hall in the form of a child. The king immediately commanded the squire to find the boy and bring him forward. The squire went to the nook where Taliesin sat, and brought him before the king. Malagdwin asked him what he was, and where he came from. Taliesin answered the king in verse, singing, "Chief bard I am to Elefin, and I come from the reign of the summer stars. Idno and Henyon called me Mirthan. In time every king will call me Taliesin. I was with my lord in the highest sphere, on the fall of Lucifer into the depth of hell. I have carried a banner before Alexander. I know the names of all the stars from north to south. I was in Canaan when Absalom was slain. I conveyed the divine spirit to the vale of Hebron. I was in the court of dawn before the birth of Gideon. I was instructor to Eli and Enoch. I have been winged by the genius of the splendid crozier. I have been talkative before being gifted with speech. I was at the place of crucifixion of the merciful Son of God. I have been 3 periods in the prison of Arianrod. I have been the chief architect of the work of the Tower of Nimrod. I am a wonder whose origin is not known. I have been in Asia with Noah in the ark. I have seen the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. I have been in India when Rome was built. I am now come here to the remnant of Troy. I have been with my Lord in the manger of the ass. I strengthened Moses through the water of Jordan. I have been in the firmament with Mary Magdalene. I have obtained the muse from the cauldron of Caradwin. I have been bard of the harp Talayan of Lachlan. I have been on the White Hill in the court of Quillan for a day and a year in stocks and fetters. I have suffered hunger for the son of the Virgin. I have been fostered in the land of the deity. I have been teacher to all intelligences. I am able to instruct the whole universe. I shall be until the day of doom on the face of the earth, and it is not known whether my body is flesh or fish. Then I was for 9 months in the womb of the hag Caradwin. I was once little Gwion, and now at last I am Taliesin. When the king and his nobles heard Taliesin sung, they were filled with wonder, because they had never heard anything like it, from a boy as young as he. And when the king knew that Taliesin was the bard of Elephin, he bade Henian, his finest and wisest bard, to answer Taliesin and to compete with him. But when Henian came forward, he found he could do nothing but make the noise. When Malagdwin sent for the other 24 bards, they all did the they could make no other sound. Malagdwin asked Taliesin what his errand was, and Taliesin once more answered him in song.